Hello everyone and welcome to How-FixIT. If your iPhone 16 frame is bent or warped after a drop, the display or back glass no longer sits flush, you see gaps around the edges, or the phone feels twisted, replacing the housing may be the best solution. In this step-by-step guide, I'll show you how to fully disassemble the iPhone 16, remove all internal components, transfer them into a replacement housing, reassemble the phone correctly, test all functions, and install new sealing adhesive. For this repair, you'll need a precision screwdriver set, plastic pry tools, tweezers, a suction cup, and a screen disassembly tool, which are all essential for safely opening an iPhone. To restore water resistance, you'll also need adhesive sealing tape. Additionally, you'll need a 9-volt battery with 2 wires and clamps to remove the battery. I've included links to the tools, adhesive, and replacement parts in the video description below. For the best results, I highly recommend using a magnetic mat to organize all screws and small parts during disassembly. The iPhone 16 uses many screws with different types and lengths, and installing the wrong screw in the wrong location can damage the phone. The magnetic mat keeps everything secure and helps you put each screw back in the correct place during reassembly. Before starting, completely power off the iPhone. Next, remove the 2 pentalobe screws located on each side of the charging port. Place the iPhone face down and apply controlled heat around the edge of the back glass to soften the perimeter adhesive. Place the suction cup on the back glass and pull upward with steady pressure. Insert a thin opening tool into the gap and begin cutting through the adhesive. Keep the opening tool shallow as you work around the phone. There are delicate flex cables, spring contacts, and other components close to the edge of the frame. Reapply heat whenever the adhesive becomes difficult to cut. Continue along both sides and across the top until the back glass is free. Near the top edge, the back glass is held by 2 hinges. Gently shift the back glass toward the bottom of the phone to release it from the upper retaining points. Do not pull the back glass away yet because it is still connected to the logic board. Carefully swing the back glass open toward the right side of the iPhone, like opening a book. You'll now see the battery connector cover secured by 2 small screws. Remove the 2 screws securing the metal connector cowling over the battery and back glass connectors, then remove the cowling. Support the back glass while you work. Always disconnect the battery first. Use a plastic spudger to disconnect the battery press connector from the logic board. Then disconnect the back glass connector. The back glass assembly contains electronics associated with the rear assembly, so handle the flex cable carefully and place the glass somewhere safe. The iPhone 16 uses electrically releasable battery adhesive, so the battery can be removed without pulling traditional stretch-release adhesive strips. Prepare your 9-volt battery with a positive and negative lead. Connect the red wire to the positive terminal and the black wire to the negative terminal of the 9-volt battery. Connect the black negative lead to the lower right grounding screw on the bottom speaker. Next, gently peel back the silver adhesive tab at the bottom of the battery using tweezers. Then connect the red positive lead to the exposed silver adhesive tab. Make sure the red clip makes contact with this silver point on the tab. Hold the connection for approximately 1 minute and 30 seconds. The electrical current releases the adhesive underneath the battery. Make sure both connections remain stable. If the battery doesn't release, the most common causes are an unstable 9-volt source, the battery may be weak and needs replacing, or poor contact between the adhesive tabs and your wire clamps. After the release process is complete, attach a suction cup to the battery and gently lift it from the housing. On the back of the battery, there is an electrically released adhesive. If you are going to reuse this adhesive, do not place the battery on this side. If the battery adhesive has been damaged during removal, replace it before reinstalling the battery. I've included a link to replacement adhesive tape in the video description below. Return to the rear side of the housing. Remove the 2 screws securing the Taptic Engine connector cowling and lift the cowling away. Then remove the 2 screws securing the Taptic Engine itself. Disconnect the Taptic Engine press connector from the logic board, then lift the Taptic Engine out of the housing. If your iPhone no longer vibrates, haptic feedback feels weak or intermittent, or you hear rattling or buzzing during vibration, the Taptic Engine may need replacement. Next, remove the bottom loudspeaker. The speaker is secured with 5 screws. Keep track of every screw location because several different lengths are used in this area. Remove all 5 screws, then carefully lift the bottom speaker out of the housing. Since this iPhone 16 is the physical SIM version, remove the SIM tray before removing the SIM reader assembly. Remove the 2 standoff screws securing the SIM reader. Disconnect the SIM reader flex connector and both USB-C connector flex cables from the logic board. Remove the 2 screws securing the spacer, then remove it. Remove the last standoff screw, then remove the SIM reader assembly. If your iPhone 16 is eSIM only, you will have a spacer instead of a SIM card reader. Next, we'll remove the TrueDepth front camera assembly. Remove the 4 screws securing the camera connector cowling. This bracket uses 3 crosshead screws and 1 Y-type screw, so keep their locations organized. Disconnect the 2 flex connectors, then carefully lift the front camera assembly out of the housing. Do not disassemble the TrueDepth module itself. It contains the components used for the front camera and Face ID system, including infrared hardware. This iPhone 16 is the non-M-Wave version, so the area around the top speaker uses a shim instead of the MM-Wave antenna assembly found in some regional models. Disconnect the 2 top speaker press connectors. If your iPhone has a MM-Wave antenna, disconnect the 3rd nearby press connector. Then remove 6 screws securing the top speaker. These screws are not all identical, so keep every screw in its original position on your magnetic mat. Lift the top speaker out of the housing. The top speaker is also commonly called the earpiece speaker. If call audio is very quiet, distorted, crackling, or completely missing, this is the module that may need replacement. Next, we can remove the rear camera assembly. Remove the 3 screws securing the rear camera module to the housing. Then disconnect the button flex cable and 2 rear camera flex connectors from the logic board. Lift the camera assembly straight out without pulling on the flex cables. If the rear camera shows a black image, does not focus, produces blurry or unstable video, or the camera app has persistent hardware-related problems, then this assembly can be replaced. Place the camera module somewhere clean and protected from dust. 2 display cables are connected to the logic board from the back. Before removing the logic board, we'll open the front side and remove the display. Temporarily put back the back glass to protect internal components, then place the iPhone face up and apply controlled heat around the display perimeter to soften the adhesive. Attach the suction cup near the bottom of the display and pull upward with steady pressure. Then insert a thin opening tool and carefully cut through the adhesive around the perimeter. Reapply heat as needed instead of forcing the opening tool through cold adhesive. Keep the tool shallow. Internal flex cables and spring contacts are located close to the frame. At the top edge, gently shift the display toward the bottom to release the upper retaining points. Do not pull the display away from the housing yet because two flex cables are still connected. There are two separate connector cowlings on this side, one for the display connection and one for the ambient light sensor connection. Remove the screws securing each cowling and remove both brackets. Then disconnect the ambient light sensor flex cable and the display cable. The display can now be removed from the iPhone. The ambient light sensor assembly can remain attached to the original display during a housing replacement. It only needs to be transferred if you are installing a replacement display that does not include the necessary sensor assembly. Place it face down on a clean, soft surface and avoid touching the back of the display unnecessarily. Now move back to the logic board. Remove the 3 screws securing the logic board to the housing. Before removing the logic board, disconnect the remaining flex cables. Carefully lift the logic board out of the housing. If you are replacing the logic board rather than transferring the original one, keep in mind that the supported components connected to the replacement board will need to be finished and calibrated through Repair Assistant after reassembly. That includes the back glass, battery, display, front camera, rear camera, and enclosure. Now we can remove the main microphone assembly. Remove the 4 screws securing the microphone, then disconnect the microphone press connector. The microphone is also bonded to the housing with adhesive. Gently heat the microphone module, then carefully pull it toward the top while releasing the adhesive. The USB-C assembly uses several different screw types. Remove all the screws securing the flex cable to the iPhone housing. The flex is bonded in several areas. Once all fasteners are removed, apply gentle heat to the housing to soften the adhesive. Use a plastic tool to work underneath the flex cable and slowly peel it away from the frame. Do not pull directly on the cable. Continue releasing the adhesive until the complete USB-C charging port assembly can be removed from the housing. Inspect the area for any remaining adhesive and check that the grounding contacts and springs have not shifted. Next, remove all the screws securing the flex antenna cable. Once all fasteners are removed, apply gentle heat to the housing to soften the adhesive and remove the antenna. Next, remove the 4 screws securing the action and volume button flex cable to the iPhone housing. Carefully separate the flex cable from the frame and remove it. If the action button or either volume button is not responding, works intermittently, or no longer clicks properly, this flex cable can be replaced. Now move to the opposite side of the housing. Remove the protective screw covers and brackets. Disconnect the small camera control contact lead from the main button flex. Do this slowly to avoid tearing the cable. Remove the screws securing the flex cable and button mechanisms to the housing. Carefully separate the flex cable from the frame. This flex cable contains the mechanical side button and the camera control button. However, the camera control sensor itself is integrated into the enclosure and appears to be laser welded to the frame, which makes transferring it to another housing extremely difficult. For a housing replacement, I recommend using a compatible enclosure with the camera control sensor already installed. If you replace the complete enclosure, Repair Assistant may be required to finish the repair and configure the new enclosure with the iPhone. I'll show you how to check and complete this process later during testing. At this point, all major removable electronic components have been removed from the iPhone 16. There are still a few spring contacts left on the housing. If they are not pre-installed on your replacement housing, transfer them from the original housing before reassembly. For a housing replacement, I recommend using a compatible enclosure made for your specific iPhone 16 model. If your iPhone 16 supports a physical SIM card, make sure you buy a housing with the correct SIM card slot. The same applies to eSIM-only versions. Make sure the replacement housing matches your original configuration. I've included a link to a compatible replacement housing for the iPhone 16 in the video description below. Before beginning reassembly, inspect the replacement housing carefully. Check every threaded mounting point. Make sure all grounding springs are correctly positioned. Now that the iPhone is completely disassembled, we can begin transferring all components into the replacement housing. Step 1. Install the side button and camera control button flex cable. Place the flex cable into the replacement housing and route it exactly as it was in the original frame. Reinstall the screws securing the flex cable and button mechanisms to the housing. Reconnect the small camera control contact lead to the main button flex cable. Make sure the connector is fully seated and do not force it. Reinstall the protective screw covers and brackets. Step 2. Install the action and volume button's flex cable. Place the action and volume button flex cable into its original position along the side of the housing. Reinstall the 4 screws securing the flex cable. Before moving on, press all buttons several times. Each button should click normally and return smoothly. If one feels stuck, soft, or misaligned, correct the flex cable position. Step 3. Install the antenna flex cable. Position it exactly as it was in the original housing. If the adhesive no longer holds properly, slightly warm the housing and press the cable into place so it sits flat. Reinstall all screws securing the antenna flex cable. Make sure the cable is not twisted and that none of its contacts are damaged or covered. Step 4. Install the USB-C port assembly. First, make sure the two grounding clips are present and seated correctly. Now install the USB-C charging port assembly. Position the USB-C port inside the housing and make sure it sits perfectly centered in the opening. Reinstall all screws securing the USB-C flex cable to the housing. This area uses different screw types and lengths, so make sure every screw goes back into its original location. If a screw stops too early or does not tighten normally, do not force it. Check that you are using the correct screw. Step 5. Install the main microphone. Place the main microphone assembly back into its original position. Because the microphone was originally bonded to the housing, make sure it sits flat and securely against the frame. Reinstall the 4 screws securing the microphone assembly. Reconnect the microphone press connector. Step 6. Install the logic board. Before lowering the logic board into the housing, make sure all flex cables are routed out of the way so none of them become trapped underneath the board. Make sure the logic board sits completely flat and aligns with all mounting points. Reinstall the 3 screws securing the logic board. Now reconnect all flex cables that were disconnected during removal. Never force a connector. If it does not snap into place easily, lift it and realign it. Step 7. Install the display. Place the iPhone face up and position the display next to the housing. Reconnect the display cable and the ambient light sensor flex cable to the logic board. For now, do not reinstall the 2 connector cowlings and do not permanently seal the display with new adhesive. We'll first test the iPhone after the remaining components are installed. Return to the rear side of the iPhone. Step 8. Install the rear camera. Place the rear camera module into its recess. Reinstall the 3 screws securing the rear camera module to the housing. Reconnect the two rear camera flex connectors and the button flex cable to the logic board. Make sure all three connectors are fully seated. Step 9. Install the top speaker. Place the top speaker back into its original position. Reconnect the two top speaker press connectors. Reinstall all 6 screws in their original locations. Because these screws are not identical, make sure each one returns to the correct hole. Step 10. Install the front camera. Place the front camera assembly into its recess and reconnect both flex connectors. Reinstall the camera connector cowling and secure it with the 4 screws. Step 11. Install the SIM reader assembly. Place the SIM reader into its original position. Reinstall the standoff screw that was removed last during disassembly. Place the spacer back into position and secure it with the 2 screws. Reconnect both USB-C flex connectors and the SIM reader flex connector to the logic board. Make sure all 3 connectors are fully seated. Reinstall the remaining 2 standoff screws securing the SIM reader assembly. Step 12. Install the bottom speaker. Place the bottom loudspeaker into the housing. Make sure it sits flat and that all nearby grounding contacts remain correctly positioned. Reinstall all 5 screws. Because several different screw lengths are used here, make sure each screw returns to its original location. Step 13. Install the Taptic Engine. Place the Taptic Engine into its recess. Reinstall the 2 screws securing the Taptic Engine itself. Reconnect the Taptic Engine press connector to the logic board. Reinstall the Taptic Engine connector cowling and secure it with the 2 screws. Step 14. Install the battery. Before installing the battery, inspect the battery mounting area for old adhesive or debris. If necessary, clean the surface with isopropyl alcohol before continuing. If the electrically releasable battery adhesive is still intact and you plan to reuse it, make sure it is clean and undamaged. If the adhesive was damaged during removal, install new battery adhesive before placing the battery into the housing. Position the battery inside the iPhone and make sure its flex cable aligns naturally with the logic board connector. For now, leave the battery connector disconnected. Very lightly press the battery down to secure it in place. Step 15. Install the back glass. Place the back glass next to the housing and reconnect the back glass press connector to the logic board first. Then reconnect the battery connector. The battery should always be the final electrical connection. For initial testing, do not install the connector cowling or permanently seal the back glass yet. Now, power on the iPhone. After the first boot, check basic functions such as Face ID and the display. If you replaced any modules such as the enclosure, battery, display, front or rear camera, open Settings, then select General and then the About section. Look for Parts and Service History. Open it and follow the calibration prompts. Next, check the speakers and every microphone using voice memos. Then check both front and rear cameras. Switch between photo and video modes and make sure autofocus and stabilization work normally. Connect a known good USB-C cable and confirm that charging works properly. If possible, also test data connectivity through the USB-C port. Test the flashlight. Additionally, check wireless charging. Check the volume up, volume down, action button, side button, and camera control button. Make sure every button responds correctly and clicks normally. Finally, check Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and vibration. Verify cellular service, calls, and mobile data. If anything does not work correctly, do not seal the phone yet. Reopen the appropriate side and check the connectors, flex cable routing, grounding springs, brackets, and screw positions. Once everything passes, let's restore water resistance. Open the back glass again, then disconnect the battery and back glass connector. Remove the remaining old adhesive from the perimeter of the housing and from the back glass mating surface. Once the iPhone is opened, the adhesive tape loses its sealing properties and can no longer protect your device from water and dust. We'll replace it with new waterproof sealing tape to restore dust and moisture protection. If you don't have new adhesive tape ready, it's better to leave the old tape in place until you're prepared to replace it. Just keep in mind that installing new sealing adhesive helps restore protection against dust and moisture. But after a repair, the iPhone should not automatically be assumed to have the same factory water resistance it had when new. Use isopropyl alcohol to remove adhesive residue, oils, and debris, then allow the surfaces to dry completely. You'll also need to remove all old adhesive from your back glass or display. The surfaces must be completely clean for new adhesive to bond properly. Carefully align the new back glass sealing adhesive with the housing. Press it down evenly around the entire perimeter using a plastic tool. Reconnect the back glass connector first, then reconnect the battery. Reinstall the metal connector cowling over the battery and back glass connectors and secure it with the two screws. Make sure the cowling is correctly aligned before tightening the screws. Remove the protective liner to expose the adhesive. Now position the back glass over the housing. Engage the two upper retaining points first, then carefully lower the back glass into place. Press firmly and evenly around the entire perimeter to create a consistent adhesive bond. Now return to the display. Carefully reopen the display. Disconnect the ambient light sensor flex cable and display cable. Remove all remaining old display adhesive from the housing and from the display edge. Clean the perimeter with isopropyl alcohol and let it dry completely. Carefully align the new display sealing adhesive with the housing. Press it firmly around the entire perimeter. Reconnect the display cable and the ambient light sensor cable. Reinstall both connector cowlings and secure them with their screws. Remove the protective liners to expose the adhesive. Position the display over the housing. Engage the upper retaining points first, then carefully lower the display into place. Press firmly and evenly around the entire perimeter to bond the new adhesive. Finally, reinstall the 2 penelope screws on each side of the charging port. If you found this guide helpful, give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more tech tips and guides. Visit our website for more insights and do-it-yourself guides. Remember, every tech challenge is an opportunity to learn and grow. Thanks for watching How-FixIT, and we'll see you in the next one.